Hello, everyone. You should be able to hear me right now. Fantastic. Ladies and gentlemen, I so sincerely apologize, but I wanted to say thank you to everyone in the chat who's been trying to technically help me from all around the world, including Middle East. So thank you so much. My name is Magdalena Dakar, and I'm Chief Executive of FH Europe. I'm delighted that despite our technical challenges, you're here with us. I will speak a little bit faster to catch up for the time lost and to give the floor to our fantastic panelists because it's a great privilege to be joined by a younger generation of FH Europe ambassadors. It's first of our 4 webinars under the umbrella of FH Europe Ambassadors Training, ladies and gentlemen. And for those of you joining us for the first time, FH Europe is a network of patient organizations across wider Europe. There are 29 organizations in the network. And as a community, we are committed to advocating for and supporting people living with inherited dyslipidemias. And that embraces FH, HoFH, elevated Lp(a), and FCS. Ladies and gentlemen, I think the best thing would be to introduce our young generation moderators. I am delighted to be joined by wonderful Danique and Indy from the Netherlands. Ladies, the floor is yours. You are the stars together with the experts. I will have to now go on mute and invisible, but you have technical support helping you. Over to you, ladies.
Hello. Yeah. Hello, my name is Danique.
Hello, my name is Indy.
And we are excited about speaking and moderating this event tonight. Especially we are joined by such great speakers.
We are also very keen to share with you all our personal experience of living with FH.
Yeah, me and Indy were diagnosed very early in our childhood, and we believe we are very lucky.
The topic of this webinar tonight is FH Paediatric Screening.
And together with today's panelists, we will do our best to help you understand exactly what that means.
As we are joined by a fellow FH patient, a mother of 3, Caroline from Vienna, and 3 international FH experts, Professor Wiegman from the Netherlands, Professor Grossel from Slovenia, and Professor Gidding from the USA. We will combine the science and the medical knowledge with real-life stories and evidence.
So during this session, we will provide you all the key definitions, models, and explain the impact of early FH screening.
We will also discuss the most common concerns, worries, hopes, and solutions.
And if we run out of time, we committed to continue the discussion in a follow-up webinar.
Finally, we hope to encourage you to join us in our mission to make early FH screening a reality in every European country so that every child born with FH has the opportunity, just like us, to follow their passions and dreams despite the condition, and more importantly, they can enjoy it with their parents, percent and heart attack free.
Now, we love to know more about your audience, so please write in the chat who you are, where you are joining us from, and what you hope to learn today.
While you're doing that, I would like to share some housekeeping rules.
This webinar is being recorded and will be available on demand on FH Europe's YouTube channel, where you can also watch it with subtitles in your local language.
It is also streamed on Facebook.
If you have any questions, do not hesitate to post them in the Q&A section or on the Facebook stream.
We will try to answer as many as we can live in the same Q&A question.
Please avoid any specific questions related to anyone's personal health records or treatment.
Okay, let us start then. Dani, would you like to go first and share with us your story?
Yes, of course. Hello everyone, my name is Danique and I live in Otterland, a small village in the Netherlands. And I just started an education to become a teacher. And I have FH. I got tested when I was 5 years old. And the reason that I got tested was that my father had a heart attack. He was only 30 years old. Fortunately, he survived. After that, me and my sister get tested and we both tested positive for FH. When I was 7, I started with statins because I participated in a trial. I'm really happy that I did it because it helps to find better medication for everyone. I remember the first time going to birth. As a little girl, I was really scared, but actually it was really nice and fun. So I have great experience with checks and hospital visits. Because I was tested early, there's no reason to be scared. I use my medication my whole life, and it's like a routine for me. Every evening, I'm taking my medication. And I'm not like a patient. I'm just Danique, a normal person with FH. I can do anything. I can do sports. I can go out with friends. I can become a teacher, and I can teach people things. So you can do anything with FH, and I think that's important that everyone knows that. When you have FH, you have to check your cholesterol a couple times at a year, and it sounds stupid and boring, but I really like to go to the hospital because afterwards I go either go for some lunch or I go shopping. It's like an extra day off, and I think you have to make it fun by yourself. So that's a little bit my story. But how about you, Indy? We have known each other for many years and we have a chance to do something amazing. And however, your experience of being diagnosed was a bit different from mine. So can you tell something about that?
Yes, of course. I'm Indy. I live in Utrecht. It's a small village in the Netherlands, I think 30 minutes away from the capital city, Amsterdam. I tested positive at the age of 8 years old, and it comes from the side of my father. He smoked until the age of 25. Luckily, he stopped now because when I see people doing it, I always think of the bad sides from it, and I'm so worried. My granddad also have FH, and he got a heart attack. His father also died of heart problems, but in that time the research was not as well developed as it is now. So my grandfather already knew there were heart problems in the family, so he tested on FH and came back positive. And my father also tested positive around the age of 18. And now I am here also with that FH. I am really lucky that my parents tested me very early. And it's so important to test early because you can prevent situations like Danique told us. And I am raised with the thought that I have FH and I don't know different of it. That when I was 8 years old and I was at the party of a friend from my primary school, I only ate chips or cake and not both. But I am used to it. But I can imagine that other people who got tested late, it can be different. I don't really feel like a patient. And I also don't like the word patient because I already take medicines since I am 8.5. And now I take 2 medicines every day. And I don't have a bad experience from it. I can do everything just like Danique told us. I can go out with friends, go on holidays with my family. And the most important thing for me is playing sports. I play handball 6 times a week, and it's the best thing for me. It is so literally my life. And it's of course the best thing to do when you have FH. So I also never experienced disadvantages of having FH, but I am really worried about other people that don't know it. Once I told my teammate about this project, and she told me her father also have FH because he got a heart attack at a young age. And I asked her if she tested, and she said yes, but many years ago. And everything was fine. But people don't know that FH can develop later during your puberty, for example. And I asked why she didn't test now again, because it's so easy to do in the Netherlands. So I explained to her how she could do it, and she immediately did it. I really want to test everyone, and I want everyone to be safe because nowadays the treatments are so good that you don't have to feel like a patient. Because as Danique already told, I also go to the hospital once a year to Professor Wiegman in Amsterdam, and my little brother also have FH, so we always go to the hospital together. And I really like to go to the hospital. It sounds weird, but I don't feel like a patient, and I have a day off from school. And after my secondary school, I really want to study medicine. So for me, it's also very interesting, and it's a little getaway from me. And after the visit to Professor Wiegman, we always go to the supermarket to have a lunch together. So we make it a fun thing. So both of us, Danique and I, come from the Netherlands, where we have been diagnosed with FH very early in the clinic of Professor Wiegman. Can you explain us something about the Dutch screening? But first, can you tell our audience who you are?
Thank you, Indy. Thank you, Danique. I'm applauding a bit the way you present this disorder, not this disease. I'm Bert Wiegman, pediatric cardiologist in the Netherlands, and for the past 32 years, I do the outpatient ward for familial hypercholesterolemia, and 4,000 children came to our outpatient ward in that time. And I tell all the children that they will become 100 if they do 5 things: don't start smoking, eat healthy, do exercise, take your tablets, and look to the left and the right when you cross the road, because otherwise the car doesn't know you will become 100. But if you do that, and I will show you a few slides where I hopefully can show, and I have to share screen and do like this. Hopefully this is, I first have to open this slide. The young people are much more familiar with doing these things. Here it is. And cholesterol, fat, leads to, and then the doctor's words are cardiovascular disease, but it leads to heart attack. And in an animation at the left-hand side, you see in yellow the fat in a vessel. And if it grows, it finally occludes, it blocks the blood to go through the vessels. But it starts slowly with some cells taking cholesterol out of the blood, taking the fat out of the blood, and fat is sticky and it remains in the cells, and then it becomes what we call fatty streaks, etc., etc., and that can last for decades. To finally, here you see in yellow the fat, and there is calcification. It is calcified, it's thickened, and it can't be removed anymore. So every doctor thinks in this way, but we, the 3 of us, the specialists now of today, think the other way. We can reverse this. If it's here, you can get the fat out of the vessel wall as long as it is not calcified. What I did in the past 32 years is doing of the artery in your neck, a measuring of the thickening, the artery that goes to your brains, the thickening of the wall. And we did it in 3 generations, in children, in parents, and in grandparents. And the blue dots are those without FH, and the red are with high cholesterol, with LDL that's really high. This is upper limit of normal. And here the red dots of children, parents, and grandparents. And what we see is already at the age of, let's assume we want all to become 80. And if you don't have high cholesterol, you don't have FH, your wall thickens to 0.8 millimeters. That's not thick. but those with FH reach that already at the age of 40. And perhaps you can bend the line from starting at 30 or perhaps starting at 20. That's all good. But perhaps better at starting at 15, or nowadays we think start as early as possible. But if you are 50 or 60, please do start as well. You prevent yourself from a heart attack. And therefore in the Netherlands, we started with field nurses to collect people, the aunts and uncles and cousins, etc., of the families where we know they have FH. And all those with FH were treated early, and all those without FH know, okay, I can't give it on. You aim for these types of pedigrees, but you end up with these types of pedigrees. So it's much more complicated, but it helps a lot to find those in great danger. And in 2013, we tried to publish about how far are the countries in the world. And in the lead was somebody from Denmark, Borges Nordeskart, and he was astonished that in Denmark only 4% were discovered, whereas a neighboring country, Norway, discovered 43%. Czech Republic is missing here, is in between. Slovenia, it was a runner-up at that time in 2013. But in the United States at that time, hardly 1% was there, was detected, and everybody was applauding for the Netherlands. But I thought 29% still didn't know, and we assumed that it was 1 in 500, but it is the most frequent inherited disorder in the world. And it is not 1 in 500, but it's perhaps between 1 in 200 and 1 in 300. And for doctors in childhood, we do know cystic fibrosis, Duchenne, Huntington, sickle cell, all known, but FH is much more common. So every pediatrician, every doctor should know what is FH. And here it is about how it works with LDL cholesterol. Like cigarette pack years, LDL is also a form of pack years leading to plaque years. If you don't have FH, you reach a certain threshold where above you perhaps can have your heart attack. And you reach that at the age of 65, for instance. Then heterozygous FH reach that at 33. And homozygous, that is that you get it from both parents and you have extremely high cholesterol and we treat them weekly. That's another rare disorder. They already reach it at 12. So we have to treat, and we normally treat with statins, as Indy and Danique perfectly told us. And you can start at 18 or 20. You will bend the line and gain 20 years. But if you start earlier, at 10, you can go to, for instance, almost the 65. So in Indy and Danique, they were willing to start before that at 8.5 and 7. And then we think we go into the direction of normal. So in the Netherlands, below the age of 4, we don't do any active screening. Between 5 and 7, we do give diet, no smoking and physical exercise, so lifestyle. And from the age of 8 or sometimes from 7, we give a low dose of statins. And from the age of 10, we, if not effective, we give higher dose statins, or if statins are not enough, we give ezetimibe as well. As Indy told us, she had 2 drugs and her cholesterol came from really, really high to really, really normal. So again, this is the first slide, and see, it can go back if we start from the age of 8 onwards, lowering the cholesterol, lowering the fat. And this is my most astonishing slide. I compared in 4,000 children, we had 1,517 families, grandparents. From some of the grandparents, I had more than 10 grandchildren. We compared one grandparent with one child of him, the parent of the child, and one grandchild. In green, here you see everybody is without heart attack, and here everybody had a heart attack or even died. In the grandparents, it started at 22, 23, and it went down, and at 50, almost half of them had a heart attack. And at 80, none of them was free from heart attack, of many have died. In the first 11 years of my outpatient ward, in the parents, it went the same direction. And then came the medicine, the drugs. Then they stopped smoking and they all stayed alive. And that's not only nice for the parents, that's also nice for the children. And here are the children. The oldest is now 49 because he was 17 to 32 years ago. And he was really recently with his son of 16. And both are doing really well. And none of them had a heart attack. And we aim for going with this line into the direction of 90, 100, 110, whatever. So hopefully that is informative and a challenge for all to try to detect. And we can do that via cascade screening, but we can do that via other ways. But I first give it back to Danik. Here.
Thank you, Professor. And is it how children with FH and FH are being found everywhere in Europe, or?
Sorry, Danik, I was busy with
That's okay. I asked, well, is it how children with FH or FH are being found everywhere in Europe?
I think in some countries we are really doing well. For instance, Slovenia, for instance, Czech Republic, for instance, nowadays Spain is a runner-up, and the Netherlands and Norway, but in many more countries, even not 1 in 10 of the children is detected. Thank you for the question. Good question.
Thank you.
I think there are different models of screening in different countries. And this is why we have Professor Groschel with us to explain how it works in Slovenia. They have another approach, and that's really promising. So, Ur, the floor is yours.
Bert, thank you very much. I hope you can see my slide now. My background, I'm also a pediatrician. So today we have 3 pediatricians. Unlike Sam and Bert, I'm not cardiologist, but I'm metabologist. So I'm actually dedicated to disorders of metabolism. Part of it, lipid disorders, and large part of lipid disorders represent FH. So I tend to see normal teenagers like the Nick and Indy on everyday occurrence. So actually I'm following a few hundred of young people who happen also to have FH, and actually meeting them every day gives me lots of energy to maintain my passion for even further improving the situation for people with FH living anywhere. I think all despite where are you living, you should have the same conditions of living. So I will try to put many different facts about FH on a same page. So this is the figure. Actually, Bert and I and Sam tried to prepare to really show or to really simplify the complexity of it to imply the best solution. So as mentioned before, FH could be considered as the most common inherited life-threatening human disorder with a prevalence of, I'm sorry, I will try to do, with a prevalence of 1 in every 300 people have FH. CVD risk, as mentioned, is much increased, especially in young adults, which is one group we are putting lots of focus on. But in this year, only 1 in 20 children really has with FH who has FH really has accurate diagnosis of FH. So we cannot be satisfied with this current condition. So that means only in Europe, there are 2 million of adult people and 500,000 of children without a proper diagnosis, actually living out there with FH. Most of them even not knowing that they are exposed to a high risk for cardiovascular disorders. And since the mode of inheritance is that it's 50% of chance that the genetic variation or mutation is passed to the next generation, which means that one of the children has a FH as well, which means each child with FH also has one parent with same condition. So actually trying to discover or to detect the people with FH really it means a care for the whole family. So if we are making a screening programs in children, then we are able also to detect parents. So there are actually 2 types of I would say more systematic ways of searching for people with FH. One is universal screening, as is in our country, is in my country, which means measuring cholesterol in all children at the age of 5. Then if cholesterol is elevated, children are referred to my institution, where we make genetic testing to finally determine if it is FH or not. And if we confirm the diagnosis in a child, then we are able also to determine if one of the parents has the same diagnosis. The other type of screening was explained previously, as in the Netherlands and in some other countries. So as Professor Wigman actually nicely shown the pedigrees, the trees of families, they had a special strategy to find the so-called index case, which means the first case in the family which is discovered. And then coming from the first case, they are expanding. So for each first case, they're able to discover more than 10 other family members which also have the same condition. This is other type of screening. There is also other type of testing called opportunistic testing, which means that any time in these encounters with patients, we have an opportunity to determine cholesterol level, we do it, and then we try, based on that measurement, we try to diagnose, to confirm diagnosis, or to exclude it. So this is the way we approach FH screening in Slovenia, as mentioned, as a part of preventive healthy visits. So each child in Slovenia is required to make a appointment with primary care pediatrician prior to the entry to primary school. At that time, also a total cholesterol is measured. So this is first step, and if it's elevated, then genetic testing is performed to confirm or exclude diagnosis of FH. And then in third step, if we confirm the diagnosis, we can also diagnose the parent with the highest level of cholesterol. So childhood really is about an incredible opportunity to screen for FH. It offers the best discrimination of genetic form from other non-genetic forms of hypercholesteremia. Usually, in most populations, there are available population-wide preventive healthy visits. It could be they could be actually accompanied, for example, with vaccination or with other types of visits. Actually, as nicely shown before by Bert, early lifestyle or therapeutic intervention must be introduced in childhood to be most effective and lasting. it's also very easy. Once we have diagnosis in a child, it's very easy to add the child siblings, so to test the siblings or to test the parent to see if they also have FH. And that all means that in childhood, testing a child for cholesterol and trying to determine whether one has or has not FH means highest possible impact on the CVD risk profile for the whole family. As mentioned before, having healthy parent is also in the best interest of any child. Even though, as some global data have shown recently, only 2.1% of adults with FH were diagnosed as children. So we cannot really be satisfied with this status. And to tackle this situation, in this year, actually, we made some very good progress on the European level, where we tried really to determine, first to build a consensus around the need for FH screening, and then also try to determine what are the best practices which could dramatically improve the situation throughout the Europe and possibly later throughout the world. And just recently, 1 month ago, we have actually made a Prague declaration, which was prepared under the auspices of Czech European Union presidency, which is now a very, very prominent also political tool to try to make a difference. Perhaps only to conclude, I would argue that screening for FH really affirms the right of any human for health, and also of any child also to have like healthy family. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Professor. I'm just interested. May I ask you, were your children also involved in the screening, and how did it make you feel? Do you have any tips maybe for other parents here?
Yes, actually, my children were all, as I was very, I would say, cautious that they were really tested about it. And actually, it made me feel more, I would say, relieved in a way that they didn't have any elevations, but still, I was quite happy that it was like that. But I mean, even if they would have elevated cholesterol, as I explain every day to the families coming to me, I think it's also very good news to know that news at that phase, because usually, as you both nicely mentioned before, if we have this information at such a young age, it means that we can really expect 100 years if we do like Bert said before.
Yes, thank you. Now, having heard those two models, let's ask Carolyn about her thoughts. Carolyn, you have also FH and you were diagnosed as a teenager, and now you're mom of 3 children. So tell us your story. I'm curious to know how you feel about the idea of your children be screened, or I mean test for high cholesterol.
Thank you, Danique, and thank you, Indy, and thank you to the professors. It's very rare to hear so much special information about FH. I'm living in Austria, and it's actually not the usual what you hear from your doctors or from the usual doctors. We do have some specialists here, but you really have to find them. I was diagnosed when I was 17, and I was the first in my family. And I had an extremely high cholesterol, and I had the luck to have been tested by Professor Wittheim. And my father was tested as well. He died 2 years later. His mother, actually, I was just thinking about it the day before. His mother died when he was 4 years old. So testing in Austria for FH is not that easy. And as I have a very high cholesterol, I really try to live a healthy life. I mean, I do everything as usual. I also don't feel like a patient, and I really like that you, Indy and Danique, explained that, because I don't feel like a patient. I feel totally normal. I take my medication every evening. It's normal. My kids ask me, "Oh, is this your medication because of your cholesterol?" And I'm like, "Yeah, I have to take this, but it's fine. You know, it's like, it's not candy, but it's fine." And I already tell my kids how to keep a healthy diet, because I think it's extremely valuable, even if they at the moment don't have a high cholesterol. So yes, I had my kids tested, because I think it's very important that to know their status from a very early age, because I think there are some, it's not only, I have, you know, a normal FH with a heterozygote high level, but so it's not that, yeah, and my kids, at the moment, they couldn't find anything, but I am aware that this can change. And for me, the challenge as a mother in Austria was that I wanted to go to have at their kids' doctor and to have them tested. And they told me, no, you can wait, you know, until they're, I don't know, 15, 16, and then make a blood test. And I was like, I have a high cholesterol. What happens, you know, if they have a kind of a rare disease, even rarer than mine? They're like, no, this is so, you know, so seldom in kids. And this is kind of the problem here in Austria. I'm really envious. We didn't even show up on the statistics from birth. Austria, nothing there. So, and this is really hard on us as a parent, and also within other people, when you tell them, well, I have a high cholesterol, and you hear from so many sides, yes, my mother or my father, wow, they had a heart attack at a very early age. And I'm like, and did you go testing? And they're like, no, I didn't. I feel fine. And I feel fine too. I have FH and I feel fine. And that's the point. So the awareness in Austria is extremely low level. What I think really helps is to have professional groups, or like the Europe or the FA-Col, which is a group in Austria. And they really provided me with names I could go to with my kids and have them tested, like genetically tested, and I'm genetically tested, and also with new information and things like that. I think that's extremely important, and something that that helped me. And I'm 43 now, so I'm all good. Yeah.
Yeah, thank you for your sharing your perspective, Caroline. And I think it's very helpful to see the issue from the parents' perspective. And I wonder how my parents felt about having me tested all the time. And well, let's invite Prof. Kidding too.
Hi, everybody. I have been really enjoying this presentation. I'm Sam Gidding. I'm from the US. I've been doing FH work since the 1980s and have happily partnered with Burton Orr. I'm a trustee of FH Europe. And I'd like just to provide a little summary and maybe ask a couple of questions to our panelists. I think we really started, with the Dutch and the success of their cascade screening programs, which basically begin with the index case. That is a patient who's been diagnosed with FH. You then ask them about their family pedigree, which are the people they're related to, and then do the cascade testing of those family members to identify them. But I think, as Bert has pointed out, they've been able to find about 70% of the people in the Netherlands, and that leaves a gap. The complementary program in Slovenia, then, with universal screening of children, gets a lot of people. I think Orr didn't mention this, but about 91% of the kids that are approached for cholesterol testing agree to do it. And I think that's very encouraging. It suggests that knowing your cholesterol is generally accepted in the population. But for Orr, he still wants to go out and use that cascade screening methodology and opportunistic screening to get other people. And then I think we can't forget opportunistic screening. We know that if you have a heart attack at an early age, you have about a 3 to 5% chance of having an FH gene. If someone comes into your office as a physician, if someone's been told by Indy and Danique that they better get checked for FH and you're a doctor in the Netherlands, then you better check them. I mean, that's opportunistic screening because they're right. We now have in Europe a best practice for pediatric screening, which is quite an achievement. In the US, we have conflicting guidelines. The American Academy of Pediatrics is for universal screening, but something called United States Preventive Service Task Force gives it a, quote, incomplete recommendation. So that creates guideline dissonance. We are up to about 10% in the US, but mostly adults with the diagnosis, but we really don't do either cascade testing or genetic testing very well. However, I thought the most exciting part of this webinar was our patient stories and finding out actually that they aren't patient stories, because none of our patients are actually patients. I can tell you that I have to use the word patient because I won't get paid if I don't bill for patient encounters. But I think what's really nice about all the stories that we've heard is that they should really be teaching us as doctors how to talk to those people in our office who are there for health. And I think what seems clear is that they believe they've achieved health through taking the medicines and feel protected against having a heart attack. And so I think as doctors, we need to listen to that. I mean, patients don't want to have heart attacks. They want to be healthy, and we can't continually stigmatize them. I think what was particularly empowering for me was how all the FH patients recognize the gene as part of themselves. That's who they are. I think there's this big stigma about genetic testing out there. And, you know, is it a bad, it's not a bad gene, it's who you are. And you have plenty of good genes. It just happens to be one gene. And if you find out about it and take your medicine, then you never have to have a heart attack. You're probably less likely to have a heart attack than someone without FH at this point. So I think the barriers that were identified that patients are concerned about getting their blood drawn, discrimination in genetic testing, the time constraints, I think we found that if these become part of who you are, that they're no longer constraints, but we as doctors have to learn how to talk to patients so they understand that and not, you know, emphasize the negative aspects, like you're going to get a heart attack if you don't do what I tell you. I think that's a very bad message or bad way to message. I think the message can be, you never have to have a heart attack if you do what I tell you, you know, and you can take control of this and do it yourself and not be a patient with a heart attack. You can be a healthy person who comes to see me once or twice a year. And so I think we have to take lessons from these patient stories about communicating with our patients. And I think as we've learned also, they can almost become your friends. So, which is nice also. I think I would actually like to ask our three patients though. I think every time I've yet to meet a family where everyone in the family is kind of happy to get genetic testing or go to the doctor. There are many people who are afraid to go to the doctor. They don't want to find out about their health conditions, whatever it is. how do you talk to your family members to encourage them to get genetic testing or get tested? Does anybody want to give us a few pearls about how to make that easier, since cascade testing is a key element of finding everybody with FH? Anybody want to jump into that? Or
Yeah, I think in the Netherlands we have Leef. It's they do research in families, and they have easy packages to test. So I also have a few at home, and soon I give a presentation on my school about it. And I also take those packages with me, and that makes it a lot easier to talk about. And also people can really see what it is and not only hear stories.
mm-hmm. Do either of the other of you have family members you'd rather not talk about, but maybe you want to talk about them here where the whole world can hear you?
No, I'm extremely strict with my family, so I got them all tested, and my nephew, he has FH as well, and my niece, she has a high cholesterol, although they didn't find the special genetic disorder, but she has a high cholesterol, and they were both happy to know their status and to know what to do, because obviously with 20, you're not super happy about, having a FH disorder, but they can handle it because they take the medication. And I think that's the important part. And it's nothing to be afraid of, to know what's going on. And I always think about it. And that was actually something Professor Wittheim told me. And he said, every person on this planet has at least 10 genetic disorders, and you are lucky to know one of those. And this is my approach. I mean, we're not perfect, and this is just one thing that I know of and that I can handle. And this is how I told my family also about them. This is just one thing, and now and it's just it's just a little test and nothing else and nothing more. It's not like they're entangling your whole genome or something like that. So I think it's nothing to be afraid of.
Yeah.
Yes, it's not about my family, but about my friends. My friends are used to that I have FH. They think it's normal, and they even ask if I have taken my medication. So that's really nice. But because of me and FH, and I think it's normal, they also want to test, and they don't see it like a disease.
Yeah. Thank you very much for those insights. It just occurred to me one thing that we haven't discussed, but I think has been learned in the last 2 or 3 years, is that actually taking care of FH in childhood is extremely cost effective. And there was a long time, well, if you started earlier and take medicines for a longer period of time, does that add to the cost and the cost of screening? But it's actually been shown by the Dutch in Australia and with different studies in the United Kingdom that actually it's very cost effective, and most cost effective the earlier in life. And we know that there's less side effects from the medicines, and that people do really well with them. And I think, as Bert has pointed out, you can really keep your blood vessels clean if you start treating at an early age. So I would like to thank everybody for great presentations. Turn it back over to our moderators and Magda. I think I've tried to answer all the questions in the Q&A. There's one left, so I'll do that while our moderators take over. Well, actually, let me just mention that a couple of the questions were related to how early to start treating. I think in general, you would start to treat a kid at age 8. The LDL is super high, over 250 or 300. You could start at 5 or 6. And homozygotes, you start when you make the diagnosis. So I think that was a key question in the.
And can I add, when we, as a country, want to start, in 1994, we discussed with the Ministry of Health If somebody is tested on their genes and is treated well, should not be penalized. So they don't pay higher for insurance companies and for buying a house, because their cholesterol is normalized. And that helped to let people tell their family that they could be tested and there is no penalty. There is a gain of decades of healthy life years. And that's something. I even want to have a penalty for that as well. But it's both, and decades of healthy life years and no penalties. So that's important in all the other countries to bring that in with the ministries of health. Perhaps that can be, or if many are attending, some take-home message.
So thank you all. And before we finish, we would like to invite you to the upcoming webinars, as well as we ask you to help us advocate for screening. Please see in the chat the link to the Prague Declaration, which you can read and endorse. So I see we still have a few minutes left. So what are your last thoughts of all people in here?
This is a
Are there any last thoughts?
This is a wonderful experience to have 3 ambassadors bringing it into the world. And there is a lot to be done, as Professor Groschel showed. In many, many countries, only 10% yet knows that they have FH, and 90% has to be discovered. But I think FH Europe, for their energy, and put so much effort in it and so much energy, and that will help.
If I may add some last thoughts, I would say that FH is a nice showcase actually for also other cardiovascular disorders prevention. So we are still too permissive with late consequences of undetected and untreated cardiovascular disorders, which are the leading cause of death. So I think we need really to change the paradigm to the primordial prevention, or at least to the primary prevention, which means that you detect soon enough the risk factor to prevent any damage occurring. So I think what we're trying to do with FH early screening, I think, goes very well in this direction.
Yeah, I would just say that the momentum for this is increasing, and we're hoping that, I think what strikes me compared to the US is the diversity of programs in Europe, the diversity of strategies. And I think from these diverse strategies, we're going to learn to find everybody with FH in every country.
Yes. Thank you once all again to all of you joining us, and we hope you found it interesting and informative. And don't forget to save the dates. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
I think there have been 3 panelists who we need to absolutely allow to have their last thoughts shared, and that's Caroline, Indy, and Anik. What is your last call to action or thought? Caroline, go first.
I like the approach from Albert. The thing that you said about not stigmatizing people, but seeing the positive side. Because when I changed my my insurance and they asked me if I take any medication, it tells me I do something that's wrong. But the right approach would be, I'm healthy because I take them. I'm doing a good thing, you know? And this is something that is really, it's just a little thought, but it's actually what's going on in Austria, you know? And And I really like the train of thought. And the other thing that I wanted to say, I also have every 2 years, I have my artery tested, and it's super clean. I take my medication for so many years now, and yeah. Thanks. Thanks for your research.
I really like
Indeed.
that you say that, because of the medicines, you still, your children still have you, and like Danique still has her father here, so it's all because of the medicines.
It is, yeah. No, it really is, and I think that's the important point. And it's nothing. And there, you know, there are some stories about the statins out there. They goes around and they don't go. They stick like glue. And I always tell the people, you know, when they ask me, "Oh, you take statins, and do you feel your muscles?" I mean, yeah, I feel them, but you know, because I worked out yesterday, not because of the statins. So it's.
Thank you, Caroline.
Yeah,
Danique.
I think it's important that you are not afraid for the test or for the statins. You are just an amazing person, and you're not FH, you're not a person, you're just be yourself.
Fantastic. And with those very, very upbeat, positive last calls and messages from our wonderful panelists, all of you, I would like to ask everyone who is still with us from the audience to show your love and to congratulate especially the 3 brave women who joined us and shared their stories, and hopefully they have helped you understand more. Thank you to our wonderful scientists and medical ambassadors. Please don't forget to join us in the upcoming webinars and endorse the Prague Declaration, and make sure that people around you have a cholesterol test. With that, thank you so much, everyone, and have a lovely evening. Thank you. Thank you.
Thanks.